Welcome to Acing It, where the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, and the passion of sports all collide. I'm your host, Ace Henry, and I'll be here to take you through the most significant stories, news, and topics in sports. We have a lot to unpack, so grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax. We're going to start off this special episode by giving a recap of NFL Week 3. First, we're going to get into the Ravens and the Colts. And the Colts upset the Ravens 22-19 in overtime. And even though Baltimore was 2-0 going into the game, their offense had looked shaky all season. Looking at the stats here, 22-9 win over Houston in Week 1, 27-24 win against Cincy. Now, that was a good game. Lamar looked good, the offense looked good, and it was a rivalry against Cincinnati, so I'll give them that. It took the Colts kicker 4 field goals from 50-plus for them to lose, but the Ravens need to significantly improve on offense if they want to be a contender in the AFC like everybody else thought they were, but I'm definitely not going to count them out. I know OBJ was out, JK obviously out for the year. They had some other injuries. I don't think Marlon Humphrey played on defense, and that defense still looked good. So I definitely think they could be a contender, but they got to pick it up on offense. And Lamar rushed for over 100 yards, I believe, and they still lost the game. So they really have to improve their passing game because they're always going to go for 100 rushing. I think they have like 20-something consecutive games rushing for over 100 yards, some crazy streak like that. So they just need to pick up that passing game. It was Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Nelson Aguilar's look good, surprisingly. And I'm assuming they're going to get Odell back. Make the game simple for Lamar. With a good run game, you should have wide open windows and lanes to throw to. And you can't play man with those threats. So we'll see what they do later on in the season. Next up, we got Browns and Titans. And with the Browns coming off a sloppy loss to the Steelers last week, and the Titans come off a surprisingly overtime win against the Chargers, I definitely thought the Titans were the better team and going to go into Cleveland and win this game. They shocked me. The Browns defense proving their top 5 in the league, maybe. Actually, I think they're number 1 statistically right now. So held Derrick Henry to -3 yards at halftime rushing, and then 20 yards overall. And Ryan Tannehill threw for under 200 yards, looked horrible. Held the Titans to 3 points. Deshaun Watson probably had his best game as a Cleveland Brown. They scored 27, won 27-3 at home. They lost Week 2 against the Steelers, who looked awful the week before, and like this week in Week 3. So I don't know if Deshaun Watson can improve his play. I know Nick Chubb's out for the season, but Kareem Hunt is a very comparable back. He's not Nick Chubb, but he is good enough to get the job done. I don't think they'll ever be not ever, but this year I don't think they'll be a contender in the AFC, but you can't overlook them and count them out, so we'll see what they do as the season goes on. Dolphins and the Broncos, and as everybody knows by now, the 2 big stories of Sunday were Taylor Swift and the Dolphins scoring 70 points and winning by 50. 300 yards rushing and passing, I think. Something crazy like that. I think 7 rushing touchdowns. I think Tua threw for 3. My only takeaways from this were the Dolphins' offense was better than we all expected, I think. And the Broncos have a good defense. Well, they used to. I don't know. They let up 30 points against the Commanders last week, who scored 3 this week. So I don't know, but still, 70 points is 70 points. The other thing was that the Broncos are fighting with the Bears for the worst team in the league. So, hey, good thing they play this week. So we'll see how that goes, but that's it from that game. Okay, Jaguars and Texans, and this was something that really surprised me. I thought that the Chiefs' defense was just super underrated. So when they held the Jaguars to 9 points, I wasn't really surprised by that. I'm like, okay, they got into the red zone, I think, 2 out of those 3 times last week, and they had to settle for field goals. So this week going against the Texans, wasn't expecting anything. I know the Texans look better than most people thought they would, but, you know, Jags and Trevor Lawrence with Calvin Ridley, that offense, thought they were going to turn it on at home this week. They definitely did not do that. A bunch of turnovers, mistakes. They ended up losing to the Texans at home, 37-17, and C.J. Stroud honestly looked like the better quarterback in that game. And he's definitely proven he's the best rookie from that draft. The Texans are shocking a lot of people. In that division in general, the Colts are a tough out, as you see. They beat the Ravens this week when they played the Jags first week of the season. It's going to be a tough division. I think, obviously, the worst team in that division, is the Titans. But I don't know. They beat the Chargers in overtime. I don't know. They're all weird teams. So you can't really count any of them out right now. We'll see if the Jags start to pull away or if the Texans and Colts, and maybe even Titans, stay in this thing. I just know that Trevor Lawrence has not gotten off to a good start this season. I don't know what it is with the Jags starting their season off shaky, but maybe they'll turn it around like the second half of last season and make a push to get into the playoffs. The Vikings and Chargers, and the Chargers finally got the first win of the season. It took a 400-yard, 3-touchdown performance from Justin Herbert and a 215-yard day from Keenan Allen, along with some stupid Minnesota mistakes basically gave the game to the Chargers. Not gave it to them, but they had a chance to win at the end of the game. The Vikings keep finding ways to lose. With the Chiefs, you definitely didn't want to get down 0-3, and luckily for them, the Broncos and Raiders both suck, so they're still the second best team in that division, and they really be out of it if the Chiefs didn't lose week 1. But Chiefs 2-1, Chargers 1-3. We'll see how the schedule matches up. I definitely don't think the Chargers are as bad as their record shows, but they have to improve on defense, really. Can't keep getting into these shootout type games. With the Bears obviously being the worst team in that division, if the Vikings can cut out some mistakes, penalties, turnovers, whatever it is, their defense is not going to be good, I know that. But if they could just limit the mistakes offensively, they have a top offense in the league to me. So they could really hang in there with Detroit and Green Bay, and I think Detroit is probably the best team in that division. I'm not willing to count Minnesota out just yet, but with Kirk Cousins, the way they've been playing, they're going to do some dumb stuff, and history might repeat itself with Stephon Diggs and the Vikings and Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. He might want to get up out of there if the season keeps going like this. The Chiefs and the Bears, I think this was the game of the week, or supposed to be. Honestly, the biggest takeaway from this game is Taylor Swift. Other than that, I'm not going to read too much into the Chiefs offense because everybody looks good against the Bears. Baker Mayfield looked good against them. Jordan Love threw for 3 touchdowns in his first game against the Bears and put up 31 points offensively, 38 in total as a team. But the Chiefs defense continues to prove they're legit, holding the Bears to 10 points, which really the Bears had short field position 2 or 3 times and came away with 10 points. The last touchdown coming at the end of the game, 41-0 at one point, 34-0 at halftime. Justin Fields had thrown for 40-something yards for a majority of the game, and the Bears just continue to show that they might be the worst Bears team that the organization has ever had in their 100-year history of the team. But other than that, I really can't wait to see the Bears and the Broncos, the battle for the worst, and whoever loses should just tank for the number 1 pick, even if it is the Bears, because I doubt they're going to get new coaching, which they need, new defense, which they need, new offensive line, and their playmakers are good enough to me, maybe a veteran receiver, but DJ Moore counts as a veteran. But he's not like a big target. He's more elusive slot receiver, but they don't know how to use him. They got DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool as your number 3, which I think is good enough. And they got some speed with Velus Jones Jr., who they don't even play, and some other weapons. But I don't know. It's sad to see the Bears. Justin Fields obviously has talent, but they just don't know how to use him. And he looks unsure of himself, and his composure is gone and everything. He looks like the second worst quarterback to Zach Wilson, which is painful to say because I like Justin Fields. Jets and Patriots, basically Zach Wilson stinks. Cardinals and Cowboys, and in the words of Stephen A. Smith, what can go wrong will go wrong with the Cowboys. And now, first and foremost, I want to say that I hate seeing the Trevon Diggs injury, him going out with a torn ACL for the season, and I hate the Cowboys, but I don't want to see any players get injured, and I would just prefer for the Cowboys to lose 100% healthy in perfect conditions so there are no excuses and all the fans get let down. Just when I put them on top of my power rankings, along with most people, and they look like the best team in the NFL, they go out and lose to the Cardinals, who had previously blown a 21-point lead to the Giants the week before, and who everybody thought they were tanking for the number 1 pick before the season. They get Caleb Williams. So now I think Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons and his podcast, and anybody else related to Dallas should just shut up about the Super Bowl and focus on the next opponent in the upcoming week, because every time they have these high expectations, and it's been 25 years since they got into a Super Bowl, every time they have these high expectations, they always let themselves and their fans down throughout the season and at the end of the season. So just shut up, play, and don't put yourself to any expectations or standard or put yourself up on a pedestal. But Arizona did prove that you could run on this Dallas defense. And so if Arizona could do that, imagine what Philly and San Francisco could do. And the Cowboys offense isn't as lethal as we thought. And well, I knew that their offense wasn't that good, or hadn't been that good, I should say, in the first 2 weeks. But since they had blown out the Giants and played Zach Wilson and the Jets and blown them out, it didn't really matter what their offense did, so to say. And I'm mainly talking about the red zone. I think they have the worst red zone offense in the league, or like top 5 worst red zone offenses in the league. They had to settle for a bunch of field goals yesterday, and field goals lose you games. So they just got to turn it around. Dak looks like he's trying to make sure he doesn't throw turnovers, which means that offense isn't at the highest level it could be. I honestly think Dak needs to let loose a little bit. Forget about the turnovers. If interceptions happen, they happen. And like you said that last season was a fluke. So if you really think that, you should just be out here playing and slinging it like normal, like you have been your first, 5-6 years in the league. But other than that, the Cowboys are not the juggernaut that I and most people thought they were. and we'll see how they bounce back this next week and throughout the rest of the season. The Bengals and the Rams. Now, the Bengals coaching staff, I'll say the coaching staff, might be some of the stupidest people in the NFL and in that stadium on Monday night. Going into the game, Joe Burrow, well, let's back it up. Going into the season, Joe Burrow had a calf strain, which he aggravated or tweaked in practice, and he was questionable to play week 1. He played week 1, looked horrible. He was obviously limited, and he actually re-aggravated the injury, I think. And then in the next week, they played the Ravens, divisional opponent, at home, first home game. Looked better, but still didn't win, and it wasn't the Joe Burrow we're used to. It came out that game definitely that he re-aggravated the calf injury. So it was up in the air whether he would even play, and the news got released that he would play, but he would definitely not be 100%. Like they said that in the heading, in the article. Why, as the Bengals, would you drop him back 53 times in the game, turning into 49 pass attempts against, statistically, the Rams were the number 6 defense going into that game, and they played pretty decent. I mean, kind of down. I would have pressured them more, but we'll get into that in a minute. Playing against Aaron Donald, who ended up getting a sack in that game. You drop him back 53 times, throw the ball 49 times. Joe Mixon, that should have been a game. Joe Mixon and your other running backs should have gotten 20, 30 plus carries. And you saw, well, if you're watching the game, when they ran the ball, it gained positive yards. Like, I'm talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 touchdown. That they scored their 1 touchdown on the Joe Mixon run. I don't know if they're trying to get Joe's stats back up, or maybe they thought since the Rams figured he was going to be limited, they expected them to come out and stop the run, so they're trying to air raid him. But that's just stupid. And you could say, oh yeah, every time they throw the ball, it was quick game, quick passes, throwing out to Jamar Chase in the backfield, sitting in zones and just getting it out of Joe Burrow's hands quick. But every time you drop back, you're risking pressure, a sack, Joe Burrow having to awkwardly move in the pocket, or just having to fall and take a sack because he can't move, which risks injury to a collarbone, a shoulder, a rib, a AC joint, or like Aaron Rodgers' Achilles. You saw with Kevin Durant, he had said it was a calf injury before, and he ended up tearing his Achilles. Now the doctor said they think he had a high sprain in his Achilles and not his calf. It's still too close for me for your franchise quarterback, and when healthy, the second best quarterback in the league. That's just dumb to me. So we'll see how they come out and play this week against the Titans, who they're going to be hot coming off a 27-3 embarrassing performance against the Browns. Jeffrey Simmons in that defense, Mike Vrabel defense, you know it's going to be tough. So we'll see what they do there. After Monday night's NFL games, I was listening to a podcast, Nightcap. That's Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco Johnson's podcast, where Ocho had to say this.
All the shows can pop up as much as they want, but very few have the accolades in the resume to be doing the talking.
Right. But
I'm one of the few that have the resume and the accolades to do the talking, but I know what it feel like.
That's okay.
I know what it feel like to have a bad game.
Yeah.
And to me, it's hard to do it. But you know what I'm going to try to do? How about I do this?
No, this is nothing new. It's been a huge topic of debate if current or former athletes should be the only ones allowed to critique other athletes in the media. And I thought this would be a great topic to cover, since I believe I have a fairly high knowledge of sports, and more specifically football. And no, I did not get to play professionally, obviously. And I did have the talent and IQ to play at the collegiate level if I chose to do so. And I'm also related to former professional athletes and have seen certain things up and close and personal that your average Joe hasn't. But I would also like to say that just because you played at a high level doesn't mean your takes are good. And I don't want to name drop, but you know, you've heard some people out there that were former athletes, probably really good, and they don't have to be old heads now. They could be recently retired, and when they talk about a certain team or player, you're just like, how can you be this dumb but have played professionally? And I would never say that about somebody, but you know, like, you say that to yourself, or have even said it out loud when you hear certain people's takes on top. So I would just like to say that an average fan can develop their football IQ or sports IQ in general simply by watching games, listening to announcers, listening to people talk about it on TV like a Stephen A, Shannon Sharp, and you can learn from them just simply by listening and watching. Even playing Madden is a way to develop your IQ, and I know I have developed my football IQ by playing Madden. But being an athlete or a former athlete, it gives you a bit of knowledge or insight that the average person who had never played or wasn't any good playing doesn't have. Throughout my years of playing football, I think I played football from the age of 5 to the age of 17. That's about 12 years of experience, and I'm only 18 right now. But I played every position at some point besides offensive line. But my father was an offensive line coach, and I had 2 cousins that played in the NFL as offensive linemen, so I have some knowledge about certain things that most people wouldn't even understand. For example, I mainly played receiver and cornerback, so I know how hard it is to make certain catches, or truly how hard it is to play DB. So when I'm critiquing and analyzing a player or a game or a team, I actually know what I'm talking about, and I'm able to offer insight and go in depth on things that most people can't do. And I know what it feels like to make a big catch in the game, or make a tough catch look easy, or drop a big pass on 3rd down that could have kept a drive going, or even dropping a touchdown pass, which I'm not proud of, but I've done before. I know how it feels to make a diving, contested interception and then get burnt on the next play. I know how it feels to make a blindside block and then miss your assignment and the play gets blown up. Now, maybe not at the professional level for all these, or even at the collegiate level, like I mentioned, but at some point, if your knowledge of the game is high enough, then the only thing that separates players at these levels is really work ethic and God-given ability. So I know I was long-winded with this, but basically what I'm saying is I don't think everybody should have an opinion on athletes or teams because they're either biased or don't know what they're talking about. Like sometimes you could just simply be wrong about a topic. But I also don't think that athletes should be the only ones to be able to critique and talk sports because they're not always correct as well, and they're biased sometimes themselves. You know how when you ask a certain receiver who's the best receiver in the NFL, and they say somebody who you know is probably not even in the top 10, yeah, you can say it's hard to argue with them because, okay, you probably get to play against this person, maybe see this person in practice if you're on the same team, something like that. But then when you have stats and analytics and an eye test, when you know the game, to compare this receiver to these other top receivers in the league, you just know that they're wrong sometimes. So that's what I mean when sometimes players' judgments and takes and critiques are just wrong about certain topics and teams or players or whatever. But enough of all that serious topicness. Let's end the bonus episode off on something light. We're gonna get into Aces NFL tiers, and these are my power rankings for. Oh my goodness, excuse me. These are my power rankings for the NFL teams after week 3, and then we'll get into my quarterback rankings for all the quarterbacks or starting quarterbacks for NFL teams after seeing them play in week 3. First thing we're going to do, we got the Bears negative 100. Worst team in the league by far right now. The Broncos have showed some sign of life of winning. That's why we got them at 31st. Panthers still 0-3, 30th. Raiders, Titans, Commanders, Jets all looked bad last week. Moved them down. The Giants, I don't think they're up 5. I think that was an error, but the Giants have moved up. The Cardinals definitely move up after beating the Cowboys. And the Texans and Colts coming off big wins, big upset wins, got them moving up. And then we're going to get into the second tier, I guess you could say, of the power rankings. Pats move up only by 1, I think, after beating the Jets. The Vikings stay the same. I know they're 0-3, but I'm not counting them all the way out yet. The Saints stay the same only because Derek Carr got hurt. And I know you could say their defense did give up 18 points in the second half, but in the fourth quarter, but they still kept them under 20. Bengals move up a little bit, Chargers move up, and Jags move down. And then we got top 10. Browns move up to top 10 after that performance. If they can keep that up, they're definitely a top 10 team, and actually they will probably move up. Lions stay the same. Seahawks move up after another win. Cowboys down to 5, which is probably the biggest move from 1 to 5. I put the Niners at number 1. You can have the Niners or Dolphins there. Then Dolphins, Chiefs. Bills up to 6. Ravens down after that Colts loss. But I think I'm pretty proud of this top 10. Let's get into these quarterbacks. Now, Zach Wilson, obviously last, trash. Justin Fields, sad to say, second to last, trash. Sam Howell, who was up before this, he had a good game against the Broncos, just put himself right back down with that horrible outing against the Bills. Ryan Tannehill looked horrible. Bryce Young didn't play. We kept him at 28. Jimmy G, 21st, looked horrible. Had to move Baker back after that loss. Anthony Richardson didn't play. We kept him there. Derek Carr got hurt, so we just kept him there. Matthew Stafford definitely had to move back after that outing. Jordan Love, I think, basically stayed the same. Kirk Cousins, I could probably switch Kirk and Geno, honestly, but everything else I like. And then top 10, we got Joe Burrow still number 10 because of his previous ranking and injury. I'm not going to put him down. Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence had to move back. We put Tua up to number 2, move Lamar back behind Josh Allen because he has not been playing good. And we got my homeboy, number one, to cap it off. Thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me during this quick bonus episode. It was too much that happened Sunday and too much that I want to talk about and get off my chest. So I decided to drop a midweek special episode. But make sure you check out episode 3 coming out Sunday morning. Not sure the time yet, but I'll keep you guys posted. You're also able to listen to this podcast on Spotify and hopefully soon all other places where you listen to your podcast. But I appreciate you guys so much. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it. Like the video. Share it to people who you think would agree or disagree or would simply just enjoy this video. And until next time. And I'll see you when I see you.